Welcome, everyone, to the bonus session of the Pleasure Elixir. I am so excited that my dear, amazing friend and sister and colleague, Rosa McGill, has agreed to do this bonus session with me because the truth is that this topic that we're going to be exploring tonight is so important. And what I'm noticing is the topic of pleasure has so many different elements. And tonight, you might get a little triggered. You might get a little bit excited. You might get a little bit anxious, fearful, who knows, whatever emotions come up, I would just invite you to hang with us tonight. So tonight, we are talking how busy women can live a desire-filled life. And it's the final webinar of this Pleasure Elixir series. We've talked about how to go from push to pleasure on webinar 1, how to shed the shoulds on webinar 2, and then on webinar 3, we talked about how to fire up your desires to fuel your big, meaningful dream. And tonight, not only are we talking about how busy women can live a desire-filled life, but more importantly, we're going to dive into the topic of orgasms. And there is nobody on the planet who I would rather talk to about this than Rosa. So without further ado, I will introduce Miss Rosa. Hello, Miss Rosa.
Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for having me, Jess. It's so beautiful to be on the webinar with you. We are friends from way back, it feels like. It's been years that I've known you. I used to live in Las Vegas, and you've seen me go through this whole kind of iteration of working in more of a tech capacity and the business world, and moving into being much more focused on pleasure and desire, and ultimately teaching orgasmic meditation, which I'm really excited to talk about tonight.
Yes, yay. I know, I can't even remember how long have we known each other? Has it been, it's been at least 4 years, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And
time flies.
I know, time flies. That's crazy. And we had both spoken. I don't even think we really realized this at first. When you ended up joining Tribal Truth, that is based in San Diego, and I started a tribe here in Las Vegas. I don't even think I really realized for a while that you and I had both spoken at an event together called Inspire, which is part of one of Zappos' brands, Delivering Happiness. And so it was so cool to kind of learn that we were tied together in this whole other way, both, wanting to share our message. And I think you were talking about tech at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, and now you're talking about something that is so exciting to so many women and so needed. So I just honor you and thank you, first of all, for doing this work. I wouldn't imagine that it's easy, but I know from personal experience, just in conversations with you and being in the women's group with you, that you're super powerful in the way that you hold women, and you work with men as well too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, teaching them about women.
Awesome. Which is super needed.
Right?
Yeah. Cool. Well, why don't you just kind of tell us a little bit of an overview of what you do and what is orgasmic meditation?
Absolutely. So I am a coach, and I'm based in Melbourne in Australia. So I spent some time living in the States, about 5 years altogether, and then I moved home a year ago. And I focus on women living a desire-based life. So instead of basing our lives on what other people think and impressing people or our parents, or all of the expectations that can feel so oppressive, instead really anchoring into that deepest part of you that really wants you to feel vital and alive and purpose-driven. And so I go through a process with my clients on figuring out what that would look like and then making that transition. And then I also use this practice of orgasmic meditation almost as fuel for that journey, like a catalyst for change. Because I notice that orgasm I would separate it from climax. So that moment where you go over a sharp peak and you're over the edge and then you like roll over and fall asleep. Instead, I would suggest that orgasm can actually be this whole ride of everything that has you feel turned on and alive and in touch with your body and connected with other people. So it's almost synonymous for life force energy, or you could call it chi, that kind of vitality that moves through you. And so this practice is a really concentrated way of plugging into that part of you, and then you feel like you have this abundance of energy and connection with yourself, and that helps you to make this transition to more of a pleasure-filled, desire-based life.
Beautiful. I love that you said expectations, because I did a keynote speech a few years ago when I was just getting into this work. And the biggest thing that's kind of been prevailing throughout my life, and I would argue through most women's lives, are those expectations. So I know for me, like mine was always, you have to be the good girl. You should, please everybody else, forget about your own needs. That's how you're going to live a happy life, is by keeping others happy. So I'm curious, like, how would you say that expectations hold us back from living this desire-filled life?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a lot of different things. I certainly felt like there was an expectation that I have a certain level of success. That was how it manifested in my family, and it might manifest for someone else, like to have a certain kind of relationship and children and all the rest of it. And none of these things are inherently bad. Like, I could be a professional or working in the bureaucracy or whatever. And if that was my calling, fantastic. If settling down and getting married and having kids right away was my calling right now, then I would absolutely follow that desire. But if it's not your genuine desire and you're doing it because you think that it's going to make someone else happy with you, impressed with you, then I think we can end up inside of lives that are not congruent with who we really are, and then there's this feeling of not quite fitting inside of your own life, and almost like who you are is not really known by the people around you, and I think that leads to a really deep feeling of anguish and emptiness and loneliness.
Yeah. Can be a lonely place, I know, when you're not plugged into, what your soul desires. And I know I've been kind of on this journey lately, digging out that. I just announced on the last webinar that I'm leaving my job and I'm moving to San Francisco. Yeah, it still feels weird to like say all that. And moving to San Francisco, which I know you've lived there, and moving in with my boyfriend. So it's so many different things. And then, of course, jumping into this work that I do with women for their self-care full time. And so it's just like so much all at once. But I think if I hadn't started to explore what you're talking about, like really plugging into your desires, I never would have given myself permission to go after these things that I truly wanted. Yeah.
And I think that it's scary. It's scary to follow your desire, particularly because we get a lot of really weird messages about desire when we're growing up. Like, don't be too much. Like, don't be too loud. Like, if you express your desire, maybe other people won't be able to get what they want, or it'll rock the boat, or you might step on people's toes. So it can feel like really nerve-wracking to actually say out loud, this is my desire. And I don't necessarily think we have a very good relationship with our own desire because of that. Like, if you've been ignoring your desire for a long time, like, you're probably not very connected to it. Like, imagine if you had a friend and you've been like ignoring your friend for years and years. It's going to feel really distant, and it's going to feel like there's not open communication between the two of you. And so I think it's a process of establishing a relationship with your desire and learning how to trust it, because I ultimately think that your desire is like your compass or your guide to this life that you're meant to live, and you can trust that it has a natural kind of innate intelligence to it, and that it will guide you to the right place.
Yeah. I want to go a little bit deeper into desire, but first I want to acknowledge we have somebody on our call live.
Awesome.
Rosa and I were just saying that I think maybe I might have scared my audience, and so nobody wanted to show up, and so I was having a little bit of fear around that. But I would love to hear from anybody who's on the call. If you want to just type in your name and maybe where you live in the chat box, and we'd love to say hello to you. So just know that we are here to support, and glad that you showed up live. I always say like 99.9% of your self-care and life is just showing up. So
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, this topic of desires, I'm curious, what's coming to me is, do you have kind of like a definition, like what to you are desires?
Yeah, I would say that it's felt in my body. My relationship with desire is very much about what it feels like. So I think that's how we can differentiate between whether it's a genuine desire from your heart and soul, or whether it's maybe something that you have picked up along the way, and you wish that you wanted it, but you don't actually want it. So, for example, I at one point was thinking about doing a master's degree, and it was partly because I thought that my mom would be really impressed with me, and we all want validation from our parents, and that's a really natural thing, and it would look good in society and all that. And so I began this journey of researching different programs and looking at what entrance tests I would have to take and stuff like that, and it just really quickly felt very heavy. And there was no sensation, no aliveness, no like electricity in it for me. It was like this kind of bogged down, dry, like maybe I should do a master's degree, like. Whereas often with desire, it's actually quite scary, like you don't know if you can quite have it. It would take you outside of your comfort zone. Sometimes you don't even know where it comes from, but it's like this soft, quiet voice that's like, I want to go to Italy, and even though it's completely irrational, you're like, oh, I just feel so electrified when I say that, So for me, that's how I know whether it's really a desire that is comes from deep within me.
I love, and this is the first time I've ever heard this, that a desire can feel scary sometimes, because we usually associate, like all desires just feel amazing immediately. And I think like for me, a lot of my clients, that's where they get stuck, is confusing, okay, here's this scary feeling. It must not be something that I really want because it's a scary feeling. So therefore, it's not a desire of mine. And instead, I'll go with this feeling over here that feels good, quote unquote. But like if we almost like peel back the layer of like, open the vagina, like what does she want? She wants this. And it feels fucking scary, but so I love that you describe desires like that, because I think that's important for us as women to remember, and I'm definitely taking that away. So thank you.
Yeah, completely. And I love that you said open up the vagina. Like you can really feel that in your, in your genitals, however you call them, if you call them yoni, pussy, whatever. Like there is a way that you feel like heat and even pulsing, or like you just feel plugged in to that base kind of chakra, like that feeling of, yeah, like this has real aliveness to it.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, like, because literally, I'd be interested to hear about your experiences with this, if you've had them. But when I got back from Bali, I went through like a little bit of a mini, like, funk of like, okay, I just did this huge retreat. I took women there. We had this amazing experience. When I got back, I was just feeling so stuck. And it wasn't until I started to just like tap more into my pleasure of, exploring this whole pleasure thing, and then creating this webinar series called the Pleasure Elixir, which felt super scary for me. And I haven't been getting like a ton of positive feedback from it. I think just because it's so out of my norm, but it's just something that I needed to do. And what happened when I created the Pleasure Elixir, it was like right at that time I went through a weekend where I filmed a bunch of videos. And that night I like woke up to an orgasm, and I was like, whoa, okay, so apparently like I'm plugged back in. Do you have any thoughts about that, like how our bodies are so connected to, when we're actually like seeking out and moving forward from our true desires?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that came to mind is the relationship between comfort versus desire. Like, comfort is that place that you were talking about before that feels good, it feels like right, it feels easy, you don't have to stretch yourself, but we can get kind of bogged down by it. You know, that like sleepy feeling of like, I'm just gonna watch TV, you know? Yeah. Whereas going outside of your comfort zone, it really does create a lot of charge. It actually energizes you. It's almost like you get a download of energy that will help you to go through the process you have to go through to manifest the desire that you've said yes to. And you transform in the process. Like, one thing I know to be sure about desire is that it will transform you. Like, your desire is actually calling you in the direction of the person that you're supposed to become. And certainly when you have intense experiences, like by following your desire, you have to be able to digest what's happening. So if you're making a lot of changes, or you have a really big experience, maybe it's a really intimate experience with your partner, or doing something really daring like running a retreat in Bali, or stepping out of your comfort zone and doing a speech, anything like that, then you're going to have to go through a process of coming down. Like, what comes up must come down. And so maybe going to yoga, all that self-care stuff that you're talking about, like going on a long walk, having digestive conversations with friends where you just process through what happened, what came up, all of that's so important, so that you kind of come back down to that grounded place, down to earth, and you land back inside of yourself.
Yeah, I think that's so important. That's one of the most important things that comes up in my coaching with women is, like, we talk about self-care, but even going into these conversations, a lot of self-care coaches, like, their vision of self-care is super masculine. And what I mean by that is like, create a structure. Every morning you must meditate. And that is self. Like, you must show dedication to yourself. And the more that you do it, the better you're going to feel. And I believe truly that fucks us over as women, because that is not the natural flow of how we operate. When we think about even like our menstrual periods, like it's a flow, and like we come, like you said, we come to like a peak of energy and then we go down. And so we're not always going to feel like we want to meditate. And it's so important for me to remind women that to be in their feminine and practice like feminine self-care, like giving yourself permission to not do something, is just as important of a self-care tool as, it's kind of like this dance. So I love that you say, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And yeah, like sometimes sleeping in is the right thing, you know, like you have to be in touch with what your body needs right now and give yourself permission to make those choices. You know, like you're the only one that knows you. You don't want to like beat yourself with your self-care routines.
Right. Yeah, so I'm curious, like, how did you get to this place? It sounds like you were very much kind of in the place of feeling like you needed to achieve a certain level of success. So how did you come from that place to where you are now, living a desire-filled life and really helping women live one as well?
Yeah, so I learned about orgasmic meditation actually years ago, like 6 years ago, and it had been in my world for quite a while before I actually decided that this is something that I want to share with the world. So it was a
Mm.
part of my life, but I was still doing other things. Like I was primarily working in publicity and social media, especially within the tech kind of startup space. Um, and it was introduced to me as radical self-care.
I love that.
Yeah, and it is really radical. You know, it's a 15-minute practice. So if you don't know, which I'm sure there are people who are going to listen to this video that don't know what it is, um, it's a 15-minute practice where a woman lies down, she butterflies her legs open, she doesn't have to take her top off, and her stroker, which is typically a man, sits on her right. He doesn't take his clothes off, and he usually wears gloves unless they're in an intimate relationship, because you could do this practice potentially with someone that you like and trust. So like, you know, a good friend or something that is interested in the practice. And the stroker strokes the upper left hand quadrant, so the 1 o'clock spot of her clitoris for 15 minutes. And
Mm.
it's not about climaxing, it's just about paying attention to your body.
Mm.
So there's nowhere to get to. You're not trying to achieve a particular result. It's really just having this experience of pleasure and noticing what comes up. So all of the subtle sensations and just really giving yourself the space to drink in that kind of orgasmic energy, that to fill up on that life force feeling, like that vitality feeling. And it's so deeply nourishing. And where yoga like works my system, like I feel really wrung out in a good way after yoga. Like I've let go of a lot of stuff, and after sitting meditation I feel like I'm very serene and a lot has been revealed to me sometimes, or I've gotten space around something that I was stressed out about. um, my experience of orgasmic meditation is that it gives me the energy that I need for my
Mm.
life. So it works really well in conjunction with those other practices, but it provides a very different nutrient, which is like that vitality and that feeling of like your cells being kind of saturated.
Mm.
Um, and so I had it as part of my life for a period of time, and I was still doing other things professionally. And I was kind of scared to like come out about the fact that I practiced orgasmic meditation, you know, because I was definitely worried about what other people would think. And I was like, oh my God, it's so weird. And, you know, it's going to mean that I'm weird. And how could I do this? Because it's like there's so much stuff that comes up for women around sexuality, like don't be slutty or don't be loose, or, you know, all of that cultural conditioning. But I was just getting so much out of it that I really wanted it to be a part of my life. And when I moved to Las Vegas, actually, I helped to facilitate Nicole Daedone, who's the founder of the practice, coming to Las Vegas to do a couple of talks. And then my friends from San Francisco who were teachers of the practice moved to Las Vegas and started teaching there. And I just got more and more involved with
Mhm.
them and what they were doing, and loved it. Like I just felt so lit up in sharing this practice with people. And then I ended up taking a coaching program with One Taste, which is the organization that Nicole runs that teaches this practice all over the world. And yeah, I ended up actually ultimately running the community of Om practitioners and teaching Om in Las Vegas. And then since I've been back in Australia, that's what I've been doing. I've been just teaching about this practice and bringing it to lots of people here. And yeah, it's been amazing. And it's so welcomed here. Like, people are just so excited about it. And they're like, oh my God, it's this totally new thing. And it's been a lot of fun.
Wow. Well, you're so brave. That's all. Like, I'm just listening to you thinking, oh my God, would I ever be able to do this? Like, for me, it was scary enough to post a photo of myself during a really rough time almost exactly a year ago. I was like pressed up against a tree, like topless, and I just had some underwear on, and that was like my form of healing. And I felt like I wanted to share that with people on social media. Well, it turns out my grandmother, who like stalks my page, was really upset about that photo, like really upset. And I'm pretty close to her. And that was such like a trigger, and just I've had to learn, like, you know, how to really just kind of digest that and be like, remind myself of the bigger purpose behind feeling confident and comfortable in my sexuality. So I just listened to your story and I'm like, wow, it's so amazing that you are just like really doing this and helping women. And yeah, does it still feel a little hard sometimes, or are you pretty like just super comfy in it?
I would say that it is challenging work in the sense that it would be a lot easier in some ways, other than the fact that it would be soul crushing, to just like be out there doing some regular job. You know, like I definitely think that this is a path of continually stretching outside of your comfort zone, and that's challenging. And there's a way that I kind of like that. I have to own up to the fact that I like confronting challenges, and I like that feeling of, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it, you know, and you push through and you have so much energy. You know, I'm sure like for a little bit after you posted that photo, you were like, yeah, you know, like I did it. There is a feeling of expansion that comes, which can be a little bit of like an addiction, you know, like not in a bad way, but you're like, oh, what's the next thing? Like, where can I stretch myself? But I definitely have days where I'm like, oh, you know, F this, like, if only I was doing something so much easier and I could just, you know, I wouldn't have to be on all the time. Like, I could just kind of go through the motions and blah, blah, blah. You know, so if I'm feeling sort of sorry for myself, like, those things go through my head. But I'm definitely grateful for this journey. And I would also say I still confront the place around family and what family thinks. Like, my mom is pretty supportive in the sense that she's glad that I'm doing what I love and that I run a business and stuff. But in terms of what the actual practice is, it makes her quite uncomfortable. And so, you know, I still have to push on in spite of not really having her 100% approval. I have other people in my family's approval and they think it's great, but my hope is that ultimately I end up actually being an example for her and permission for her to be free in places that she's not free, you know, because that's what we're doing. Like, we're actually alchemizing the shackles that we've lived in as women for generations. You know, like, I think that this is a reemergence of feminine power in a really significant way, and I don't take that lightly. You know, I think our role is very important.
Yeah. Wow. I love that you say that. Because I'm right there with you. I so believe that like, it's time for us to come together, and we can't do it alone. And it's interesting because I actually just received an application for my upcoming program And one of the comments in the application was like, thank you so much for reminding me in your webinar series that I don't have to do this alone. Like that, I've gotten some amazing, beautiful compliments from women before that have blown my mind, but like that one just hits a specific place in my heart that it's like, yes. And I remember being there in a place where I felt like I had to do it alone too, but women like you and other women who are in these communities that are willing to like step up and not be afraid and really like, take back our pleasure, as I like to say, and live these desire-based lives. Like, it's so important. It's so life-changing, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I am a massive proponent for women being in community with each other as well. It's really, really important.
Yeah. So how would you say like your life has changed, like pre-orgasmic meditation and now post?
Yeah, I mean, I loved what you said about not being alone. I definitely also felt really alone before, and not just alone because I wanted to do the work, but it was almost like I felt like no one in my life really knew me. Excuse me, because I hadn't come out of hiding yet. I love that.
Rosa's laughing at my, I have to show you guys my kombucha in a martini glass.
So good. Doing it in style. I love it. Yeah, so I had this feeling like the real me wasn't out on the surface, and that was really painful, actually, to feel like I was playing a role and that I didn't have genuine intimacy, even in some of my close friendships. There was this feeling that I had to be careful about what I shared opposed to not sharing so that I didn't make people uncomfortable or just step on people's toes or I was really afraid of being judged. And so it's an uncomfortable process to begin to come out of hiding, as you know. And I just did it a little bit at a time. Like, I don't think that we have to do it all, in this big kind of, I'm coming out, rah! Kind of way. You just like step at a time, become more yourself, and then let people integrate it, let people have their feelings about it, and then eventually I got to a place where I did feel like my life was congruent with who I am at a really deep level, so that all of my closest friendships were reflective of who I am, and that my family knew who I am, and that I was doing work that was in alignment with my heart. And yeah, like, even though there's still challenges and there's setbacks and disappointments and what have you, I have this foundation of knowing that I'm at peace with myself, like I'm not holding anything back.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. And how have you witnessed like other women that have been doing this practice or women that you've supported in your coaching, like, transform? What has that been like?
Yeah, and I was just kind of thinking I should explain why that has anything to do with orgasmic meditation. So why I think orgasmic meditation has such a big impact is because it's so vulnerable. It's so intimate. Like, I'm not going to try to make it sound like it's not. It's a very brave thing to do. And that's why I think it's important that there's support around it and there's a very clear structure to the practice so that we feel really safe, that our boundaries are going to be really well respected, and that there's no sort of weird stuff around it. You know, like, oh, we did this practice together, now does that mean that we have to go out for drinks? No. You know, like there's some really clear guidelines around the practice is the practice and that's it. And even if you're in a relationship, you want to keep your practice separate from your sex life so that it doesn't just become like foreplay.
Mm.
Because it really is about you having this space for yourself with your partner, but it's very much focused on the female genitals, female orgasm, female pleasure. And it's so rare that we get space for that. And so it's almost like breath, like oxygen, in a place where there's been like atrophy or not attention placed on that part of us. And it's almost like your desire or that feminine part of you that's been kind of like starving in the world is suddenly like, oh my God, you're giving me all this nutrients. I'm being paid attention to. Wow, you know, and like you have all this vitality and energy and you have connection, and connection just feels so good. And then you can go out into the world from a place of being full and abundant rather than feeling depleted or depressed or disconnected. And I think when we have abundance, when we're feeling happy and energized, it's so much easier to take risks. It's so much easier to tell the truth, to connect with other people, even if we risk maybe looking a bit stupid or we don't know how they're going to receive us. You know, and so I just noticed that gradually almost every aspect of my life began to transform just from doing this simple little practice.
Wow. And when like the women come to you, what kind of state are they usually in? Like what are they going through or feeling?
I would say that often I get pretty high-powered professional women, maybe because that's what I would be if I wasn't doing this work. You know, like I'm a, you know, I'll out myself, like I'm a real powerhouse, and like I can easily get into that like masculine, driving myself, pushing really hard, making it happen, you know, kind of place, and run out of steam and feel really depleted. And so I notice that when women come to me, they're often in that place of exhaustion and not having the love and sex and relationships in their lives that they want, maybe because they don't have the energy for it or they haven't dedicated the time to it. And just, I think, because it's hard when you're not feeling 100% to go out on dates and feel good and, you know, try to be flirtatious and feminine. And so often, like, they come through the doorway of wanting more intimacy in their lives, and that includes social intimacy. It's not just romantic intimacy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love chatting with you too, because our clients are so similar. You know, like me, I've been in corporate America, managing people and in everything from marketing to public relations, media, and most recently human resources in the culture department. And so I totally get too that whole like, you know, this is business and like get shit done and like you're, you know, working on the grind. And so that's who I coach too, because I'm so passionate about showing women that they can have both. Like there is a way to have the pleasure and have the power, because I really do think that's important for a lot of women. It is for me. I love to feel powerful and like unstoppable and like, you know, I can change the world. like, and so those tend to be the kind of women that I coach too. And so what would you say to, you know, busy women who are sitting here maybe listening to this webinar thinking, psh, I don't have time for pleasure, Rosa. I don't know. You and Jess are a little crazy. There is no time in my schedule. Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that 15 minutes is a pretty short amount of time. Like maybe instead of watching, you know, Game of Thrones, you practice orgasmic meditation. And just that the benefits are monumental. Like, I would say you'll experience exponential power in your
Mm,
life if you take the time to nourish yourself. Because I know for me, when I was just grinding away without any self-care, it was like I would end up a car without any gas in the tank, and I'd
mhm.
still be going through the motions, still trying to like, pound the pavement in a metaphorical way. But I just didn't have the juice. Like I couldn't make the same. I didn't get the same return on investment for my time. Like because going through the motions without actually really being there and showing up, it's not magnetic. Like there is actually an energetic aspect to what we're doing in the world. And, if you're not feeling good, you're not putting that out there, and then people are not going to want to engage with you, like whether it's sales calls or communication with your manager or your employees or relationship in your life. Like, you're just so much more charismatic, and people like want to do for you or work with you, or you're
Mm.
easy, you're a better boss, like you're a better employee, like if you're feeling good. And so I think there's a lot of power in self-care in a really practical way. Like it's not all woo-woo and you should just do it because it feels good. Like, yes, you should do it because it feels good, and when you feel good, good shit happens.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that you say that. That's amazing. Yeah, it's so true, because even on my own self-care journey, like when I started practicing self-care and then eventually coaching it, I was actually felt like I was working less, even though I was getting more done. And like I got promoted twice at work. I got a raise, a massive bonus, and I felt like I was doing less. It was weird. I was like, what is
Mm.
happening? Like, and a small part of me, it was like, I don't deserve this. Like I'm more of a slacker now. But the truth is that I was just coming from a place of overflow, so that when I did, focus in on getting something done, it wasn't from a place of pushing, right? It was a place of
Mm.
inspiration.
Beautiful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's a really concrete example.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Well, we have about 10 minutes left. Is there anything else that you would kind of want to share about either your journey or what women can do to even get started in exploring this?
Yeah, I think there are some great videos online on YouTube if you just want to learn a little bit more about what orgasmic meditation is, because it probably still feels really kind of alien or weird or like, what is it? And so those videos can just help you to conceptualize what the practice actually looks like.
Mm.
And then if you want to get in touch with me, my website is rosaimcgill.com, which is rosaimcgill.com. And I have a contact form on there, and I'm happy to just have conversation about it. Like, if you have questions, I can help to clarify what it might look like. And I don't think that being interested in it means that you have to like take off your pants and lie down and get stroked tomorrow, you know? Like my experience is that it's a process. I started working with a coach for a couple of months actually before I ever tried the practice, to confront my fears about it, to look at what was coming up for me, to start getting in touch with my desire. Um, and so you can go slow. I think that's the main thing that I want to say is like, you can go slow, and
Mm.
you don't have to do it at a pace that feels really scary or confronting, because what I've seen with this practice is that most people think that it's pretty far out when they first hear about it, and then as you talk about it more and more and you meet other people who do it and you learn more about it, it kind of normalizes.
Mm.
And then it doesn't seem like such a massive leap.
Mm. What do you think is like the biggest fear? Like underneath the fear of like, this sounds weird. What do you think is like our deeper fear around exploring?
I think we're scared to let ourselves out.
Mm.
I think we have this fear that if we really show people who we are, that we'll be rejected, we'll be laughed at or ridiculed, or people won't show up for us.
Mm.
Like, intimacy is probably the most terrifying thing in the whole world. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it's so scary to be intimate with another human being.
Yeah, it really is. I've been noticing that with my boyfriend, the one who I'm going to be moving in San Francisco. And what's weird is like I've had a lot of long-term relationships. So when I say a lot, I've had like 3 before him, but they're long-term, like 4 years, like solid relationships. With him, like within the first couple months, like I started kind of freaking out. Like he would kiss me on my belly, like in this very like beautiful way, and I freaked out. Like I would get angry, and he just it was so interesting. And what I kind of like, when I digged a little deeper even in that, I was like, why am I so terrified? And I told him later, I was like, I can literally feel like the love pouring out of you like into my belly when you kiss me, and I think it terrifies the fuck out of me. I
Totally.
so agree with you on like, and that's like him kissing my belly. He's not even like eating me out. Like he's down there kissing my belly, and that's it. And it was so intimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all sorts of stuff comes up in the face of it. Like, it's absolutely such a transformative thing to.
Mm,
I often talk about intimacy or relationship as a catalyst for growth. Because
mm,
if you really want it, you have to look at your shit. And you have to be willing to let go of some old patterns.
mm.
And the great thing is then you get free.
Yeah. And there's nothing better than freedom, right? Like just,
Yeah.
huh.
Freedom to be self-expressed, to be you, to have what you want. All of that's so important.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about because it's like exactly this program that I have coming up. I'm like, oh my gosh, like everything you've been describing is what I'm so passionate right now about helping women in. And in this 6-month program that I've created, I'm just starting to like have talks with them. I know I was telling you that I was so excited. I
Yeah,
have
I mean, I
2.
think it's a global movement.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And like we need support around this of tapping into our desires, getting clarity around them, expressing ourselves. And one thing that I'm so passionate about, which I think we talked about this on this call, is merging self-care and success, and
Mm,
tying in like that that pleasure and those desires and how they're so related to how you are showing up in the world and what you are achieving based upon your heart's desires, right? And not
mm,
this stereotypical like, are you reaching success? Are you making a ton of money? Are you, like high powered from what everybody else thinks? But literally in your heart, are you living out what I call your big meaningful dream?
I love it. And that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, that's all that matters, really. So awesome. Well, I thank you so much, Rosa. This was such a beautiful chat. Thank you.
Likewise, thanks for having me, and I really enjoyed it too. Like, it was nice to actually talk about our work because normally we just hang out and talk socially, and like, there's so much richness when we actually dive into our purpose together.
Yeah, there is. Awesome. Well, I typed in your URL into the chat box. I typed it correctly, right? Can you check? Okay. Can you check for me? Do you see it?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So everybody watching this can go to Rosa's website, check her out, sign up for her email list. I know she does lots of beautiful blogs and tips. And yes, go research orgasmic meditation. And then I'm also going to type in, I know I keep mentioning this program of mine, and you're probably like, what are you talking about? So I didn't really touch much on it, but basically it's a 6-month program that would be really diving into this self-care and success in a container with one-on-one coaching from me, but also receiving the support from a group of women like Rosa and I were talking about. Like, you do not have to do this alone. And for me specifically, I help create foundations for self-care so that that can be a launching pad for your big, meaningful dream. And if you don't know what your BMD is, that's totally cool. That's I know, I call it a BMD. It sounds so like badass. BMD. If you don't know what it is, that's totally cool. Like, that's part of the program, is really helping you get clarity on, like, what do you want to do in the world? Like, maybe you want to go and get a little, orgasmic meditation coaching from Rosa. And then maybe you also want to like incorporate your sensuality, your sexuality, your desires somehow in a bigger purpose in the world as well. So I don't know what you want to do, but that's what I'm here for. So I'm going to put in, it's tinyurl.com/, I have to think for a second, Radiance Revealed. So the program is called Her Radiance Revealed. So if you go to tinyurl.com/Radiance Revealed, then you can basically see a little application where you just fill out a few little questions if you want to have a conversation with me, and maybe just explore the possibility of what it might look like to really plug more into your own desires and your self-care so that you can reach meaningful success in your life. So look forward to if any of you guys apply. And then, oh gosh, do I have the wrong time? I'm just realizing a couple people, this silly webinar jam software, sometimes I can't see people when they comment immediately unless multiple people comment. So I see we had Kathleen on. Do I have the wrong time? No? 7 p.m. Pacific time. And then Aja or Asia, you might know her. Oh no, she's from Atlanta, not Australia. Cool name. So, all right. Well, any last words, Rosa?
I love you.
I love you. I love you too. I need to come to Australia.
Seriously, yeah. You're in my part of the world.
I want to. What?
Yeah, you were so close by in Bali. Next time you have to come down under.
I know. Well, and my photographer was from Australia. I think I was telling you that. I didn't realize that it was such like she was living in Bali temporarily with her family, but it's such like a thing for us.
It's a little hop. A hop over to Bali from here.
Have you been?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it's really like it's our Hawaii, everyone goes. It's so close by. It's like the #1 kind of destination from here.
Yeah. Fun. Well, yes, lots more travel in my future, and Australia is totally one of the tops of my list. So don't you worry. All right, love. Well, thank you again so much for this beautiful, vulnerable conversation. I adore you, and I really think that both of our audiences are going to get a lot out of tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Go live desire-filled lives. Ta-ta.